Hello and welcome to All Aboard TII's Accessibility Podcast. This is a podcast about accessibility and sustainable public transport brought to you by Transport Infrastructure Ireland. I'm Claire Scott and I'm joined by our All Aboard podcast host, Sarah O'Donnell. Throughout the series, we'll be hearing first-hand accounts from people who use and design public transport systems and specifically the role accessibility plays in these experiences. And who is this podcast for? In the first instance, we hope to connect with people with disabilities who use our services. But also, it's for anyone who is drawn to human interest stories and has a curiosity to learn more. And of course, we hope to attract listeners who are designers and decision makers for transport systems, who through the podcast might get a better understanding of some of the problems and potential solutions that are out there. So without further ado, let's give this a go and get all aboard TII's Accessibility Podcast. Hi Sarah, so what's coming up on this episode?
Hi Claire. So in this episode we take a journey on the Luas in the company of Barry O'Donnell, who is a cane user, and Roger Flood, who leads the Dublin Bus Travel Assist scheme. It was recorded over 2 sessions, so a very big thank you to them both for their time and expertise. Later in the programme we chat to Aoife O'Connell, who is Communications Officer with Transdev, and she tells us all about the Luas Travel Assistance scheme. So enjoy!
A short production note. As Sarah mentioned, parts of this episode were recorded on location, and while we hope this enhances the listener experience, there may be a small impact on sound quality in parts. Please enjoy.
Okay, so we're here this morning on Cabra Luas stop, and I'm joined by Roger Flood, who leads the Dublin Bus Travel Assist programme. I'm also joined by Barry O'Donnell. Barry is a cane user. He's a member of the Luas user group. He's also a broadcaster and an activist, I would say, Barry. Yep, is that a fair description? Yep. So what I'd love to do is chat about the Travel Assist programme for people who aren't that familiar with it, and also then, Barry, maybe to talk to you about some of the features on the platform and indeed on the tram, when we go on that in a while, what works, what doesn't work. So, Roger, if I could start with you, maybe you could tell people about the Travel Assist programme, a little bit about the background and who typically uses it.
Okay. So the Travel Assist programme was set up 15 years ago by, if I remember correctly, it was Minister Seamus Brennan, who was in England, seen it working over there and then brought it back to Ireland and introduced it to us. The people that use the service are from the age of 18 and over, and it's based on anybody that feels that you could benefit from the service. So we would work with all different disability groups, we would work with the elderly, and basically anybody that wants to use the service.
Excellent. And although it's known as the Dublin Bus Travel Assist, you help people on all modes of transport, so Irish Rail, DART and Luas.
Yeah. We cover all forms of transport within the greater Dublin area.
Very good. And in your experience, like we're on the Luas platform here, what are the recurring issues that come up?
Okay. So everything that when we go to meet someone first, it's all about confidence. Okay. So before I actually go out with a person, or one of the team would go out with a person, we would have had our homework done. So when we go to meet someone, and I don't know which way this is going to sound, when we go to meet and work with someone, we don't have issues, because everything is done. We know what we're saying. Like for this today now, if I was doing this, if me and Barry were doing a journey today, I would have been doing this journey blindfolded.
Right.
Okay.
Amazing. Getting
to know the house. So I'd walk the journey first, and then I'd blindfold myself, working on the route, and I'm just looking around to see what landmarks we would have, and I would work on that, and then introduce it to the person I'm working with.
Fantastic. And Barry, standing on the Cabra platform now, maybe do you want to talk through for listeners just about some of the features, even from the tactile to the help point to anything else, and how you navigate that as a cane user?
Okay, so in this station itself there's a ramp leading up to road level, so there's no lifts here, so the ramp will bring you straight down to the platform. There will be what's called lozenge tactile, so there's 3 rows of that at the platform edge, to save you going over it in error. So in terms of other items on the platform, there's a help point, and that's located beside the ticket machine. Now you can press the button and you can ask the control person what time's the next Luas due and what's its direction. So you don't need to have a phone or an app or be able to use a phone or an app. This is always here. One slight problem is trying to locate the help point, because it's not kind of beside a wall or a railing like you'd have on O'Connell Street upper. This is kind of in the middle of the platform, so your cane arc and the swing going from left to right, you'd have a bit of trouble trying to find it. I did, however, know where it was, because somebody had used the ticket machine and it said, please take your ticket and your change. So that gave me my orientation, but if that person hadn't have been there, I would have had a problem trying to find it.
And you've mentioned in the past, Barry, that what might be useful would be a line of tactile running perpendicular from the face of the platform and directing people to the help point, and that would be a useful addition to the platform layout. Yeah,
because as a person is scanning the lozenge tactile with their cane, and indeed some people walk on the lozenge tactile, having a tactile strip kind of leading towards the help point would make it a lot easier, and also towards exits, because trying to find exits here are a little bit complex as well.
So, Roger, you've been doing this, you said, for 15 years. What would you say across all the modes, where have the improvements been, or where are the areas where we need to make more progress?
Every time, I probably mention people I work with all the time, but every time that I go to work with someone, I always try and work on the positives.
Yeah.
So we just say, even coming onto this platform now, I know that if myself and Barry, and I hope Barry would agree, that if we worked on this, if there was nobody buying a ticket at the machine, I'm 100% sure that me and Barry, after a few practice runs, would have this machine and have our little landmarks in time at Barry's place.
Yeah.
In terms of the positives, obviously where we're standing this morning is a positive, because this wasn't here a while back.
I just wanted to talk, Roger, about I know from I work with the Luas user group with Barry. Barry attends the meetings, and the feedback when Luas Cross City was being built and there was an awful lot of construction on the street, that the Travel Assist programme was a lifeline for people. So maybe if you'd both like to talk a little bit about that, and for future projects like where we're building Metrolink and there's going to be more disruption, what would be important for people? And maybe Roger, if you start, and then Barry, if you'd like to speak.
So again, when we go to work with people, we have a plan A, okay, but we also have a plan B. So when there is something going wrong, whether it's traffic, whether it's works going on, we have a plan B. In other words, that we will use a certain bus route while this work is going on. So we never look at anything as a major problem.
Yeah.
We look at, okay, this is a skill I'm going to learn, and it's going to add to the skill that I already have, and it works out as a plus.
Very good. And Barry, some of the things that have come up in the user group meetings would be the temporary poles, the concrete pole foundations.
Yeah, gotcha. So one of the problems we had initially was we'd walk out to a pedestrian crossing pole, but we couldn't find the button, and we didn't realise that these were actually in concrete blocks, kind of knee-height concrete blocks, and we just had to reach a little bit further over to try and find the buttons. Similar, like bus stops could end up being in these concrete poles as well. So you'd run into difficulty, but after a while, once you became aware of what to check for or search for, it became plain sailing. Other things like, obviously, streets became building sites, literally, with railings and hoardings, etc. And something like going down from Stephen's Green, from Hume Street, where Fighting Blindness is located, down to Stephen's Green, down to Dawson Street, you could hear angle grinders, drilling, Kango hammers. It was very, very difficult to find bus stops. And the great thing about Roger is he showed us a way around it. You can take another route. You can take an 11, a 46A bus, 2 stops around the corner to Leeson Street, cross the road at CUS, then take the bus stop near the Sugar Club, and just, there was a way around it. You kind of go backwards to go forwards, and that's a solution that worked very well. The same as trying to navigate through the city centre. Trying to get to bus stops over O'Connell Bridge became a nightmare, just because of all the roadworks and fencing, etc. Roger showed us a way around it. Get the Lewis from Abbey Street stop up to Museum, go round the corner and join the 37 from Blackhall Place. So there's always a way around the problem. You might have to go backwards to go forwards. You might have to take in different means of transport to get by the problem. But, that's something that Roger trained us well on, and, we picked it up.
And Roger, is that a matter of people just calling and you getting to know people, and that, if there are kind of changes happening on the ground, that they can give you a call and you work together on it?
So I think what Barry was saying there is excellent, is because sometimes the longest route is the safest route, and sometimes we have to do that to ensure our own safety. In terms of when, there's a G-spine starting now soon in the Ballyfermot Cherry Orchard area, and so what we've already done now is we've visited groups, booked them in for talks, and we're going to be starting that in October. So we'll be going out and letting them know what has to be done. I think next week we're going out, we're bringing the bus out, and we're just going to show them the new number, and we're just going to do a little tour of which way the bus is going to go. So what will happen is the Travel Assist team, which there's 4 of us, will dedicate our time to that area until we can support everybody towards independent travel under new changes.
Very good. And are there plans to roll out the Travel Assist programme to Cork? I know that they've got Bus Connects and Lewis in the future, hopefully.
So Cork at the moment has just started their Travel Assist programme down there. Amy and Eleanor are the 2 travel assistants, and at the moment now they're super busy already. Yeah. They're flying along. Cork is an absolutely fantastic city, so accessible, absolutely brilliant, and I just love every bit of it.
That's great to hear. As a Cork person, I always like hearing that. And of course, over time, Galway, Limerick.
Yeah, my knowledge is right. I think Limerick will be the next city to come along on board.
Very good. And so for people who want to get in touch, they might be nervous to travel independently now. What advice would you give them, and how do they get in touch with you?
One of the biggest issues for people when they're starting off their independent travelling life is confidence. That's the main one. So what we do is, one, we have the service advertised within organisations, and then we have it in magazines, the Irish Wheelchairs magazine, and then we had a big advertisement last year on our buses. So what we would do is people would get in touch with us. So we don't just turn up at the house and say, "Are you right? Let's do a journey." What we do is we'd meet them. Mm-hmm. We'd have a cup of tea, a coffee in the house, explain the service. We'd have already done the practice journey, so we'd be able to let them know what the journey is, how long it takes, and that'll be that.
Work from there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And Barry, from your point of view, what advice would you give to people maybe who aren't feeling confident at the moment but would like to try travelling independently?
Yeah, I suppose the one thing is Travel Assist, top class. Roger isn't afraid to walk the walk, as he said earlier on, to put a blindfold on and to cover the route. And, if Roger is happy with doing the route, I'm happy with doing the route. It's a very rewarding, very positive feeling to be able to travel independently, and it's great to be able to leave your front door, walk to the bus stop, walk to the train and the Lewis, and to be able to get into town, do your business, do what you have to do, and travel home safely. It's an empowering feeling at the end of the day. Absolutely.
And I think we're hoping to maybe go on board a tram. I don't know when the next one is due. We've a little bit of time. But you spoke about the help button on the Lewis stop. Do you want to just press
perfect.
It now?
Yeah. So it's a stainless steel one here. It's the new Cross City line. It's a round button, stainless steel. So I'll press it and I'll ask Control what time the next tram is due towards the city centre. Oh, hello, good afternoon. Just at the Cabra stop, blind passenger. Can I ask you what time the next Lewis towards the city centre is due?
Next one to where?
The next Lewis from Cabra towards the city centre?
Is in Broombridge now.
Okay.
And what time is it? Departure. 1 second there, please.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Is there no display information working, is it?
No, I'm sorry. I'm actually blind myself. I'm blind. Yeah. Thanks for your patience.
1 o'clock. Right, it leaves at 1 o'clock, Broombridge, so what, another 5 minutes or so?
Another 5 minutes. And can I ask you what the destination for that is?
Destination in this one is going to Sandyford Central.
Gotcha. That's brilliant. Thanks for your help this afternoon. Thank you. Good luck. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Very good.
Very good. So I think if we board the next tram, we'll go towards Phibsborough. I think it's the one that's it's the one that's coming up next.
Will it go to this curb? The
Curb.
The tactile is coming up now.
Yeah. So Barry, okay. So you would like to get onto a tram where the driver is.
We're about to board the tram. We're at Cabra stop, and we're about to go on board and continue our chat, Barry. But there's been high winds all morning, and the tram is temporarily out of service. We've been told it'll come back up in about 20 minutes or so. But Barry, as a cane user who travels regularly on the tram system, what do you do in the event of a breakdown generally? What kind of difficulties do you face?
Now, so I suppose over the years I've had two experiences of this. One was in Drimna before COVID, just due to an unforeseen overhead line failure. The tram had to stop at Drimna. Now, the driver did say that tickets were valid on Dublin Bus, and there were PA announcements on the platform from control saying tickets were valid on Dublin Bus. The problem, though, is knowing where the nearest bus stop is. And the problem is a lot of other passengers would scarper or kind of disappear very quickly. And when you do go up to the driver, the driver can't leave the tram he or she is on. When you do press the help points, then you're kind of in an awkward situation, because you're relying on revenue protection or Lewis security to get to you and to help you off the tram. So in my own case, I just had to hang tough until the overhead line fault was restored. In another occasion, I had to rely on the help of a very helpful member of the public, because I wouldn't be aware where the nearest bus stop is to each tram stop. I might know it for 2 or 3 stops around the area, but if it's an unfamiliar stop like Shure Road, where is the nearest stop? So yeah, it's probably something that needs to be addressed. Yeah. But how would it be? Could Lewis Control maybe arrange a taxi or something, to get you to your destination or to a bus stop, just to get back on track? Yeah. But yeah, it's something to resolve. I think the other day in Connolly Station as well, I was on a Lewis, and after about 10 minutes or so, there was a crash up in St James's Hospital, and Dublin Fire Brigade had closed the road, which meant that trams weren't running in either direction. Now, it is a similar experience there, whereby the driver can't leave the tram. I was on the tram for about 40 minutes, but because I'm afraid of banging my head off the back of a footbridge on the concourse in Connolly that was unprotected the last time I hit it, I'd rather if somebody could give me a hand over. So I suppose in that situation, I was lucky an Irish Rail guy who had helped me onto the tram 40 minutes earlier had helped me off the tram, who had helped me cross the road to Talbot Street. But yeah, if that guy Ryan wasn't there, I would have been in trouble. And the other passengers on the tram had all disappeared very quickly. Yeah. So, or the other way, if Lewis drivers could advise where the nearest bus stop is and also what routes depart from that area. Yeah. Because they're both sides of the street. But it's somewhere like Drimna, it could be quite a distance away.
And also trying to make sure that you've got as much customer support as possible, where possible, that there's guys on hand if in the event of a failure.
And I suppose you do have to rely that the guys on hand are relying on the Lewis to get around as well. Exactly. And if that's blocked, that they're out in the limb as well. Yeah.
Now, if we had planned to get on board the tram, and you've mentioned before about your kind of workaround to find the doors and to actually board the vehicle. Tell us about that, Barry.
Okay, yeah. So I'd been using the Lewis tram for a few years, and one of my pet hates was trying to find the door and the door open button. It's difficult to find the seam, between the door and the tram because it's so smooth and shiny. Now, you can be lucky. Somebody else might have already opened the door. But yeah, it's a very difficult, like a needle in a haystack, a very difficult task. So thankfully, I spoke to Roger Flood, and Roger Flood from Dublin Bus Travel Assist gave me a very helpful tip. And that was always to walk to the front of the Lewis platform just before it slopes, so you can feel the slope.
And the ramp,
yeah. And that's it. And there's kind of corduroy tactile at the start of it. But as you feel the ramp, the slope of it, just stop yourself, position yourself there, and the Lewis driver will always open the door for you. So you'll hear the click and you can walk towards the door. Now, during the COVID pandemic, unfortunately, for about 18 months, the front door of the Lewis was closed. And indeed, the area behind the driver's cab was kind of chained off. So that became very difficult for us because, for people who are blind or partially sighted, because we had to trail the Lewis in the hope that another passenger had opened the double doors down, and sometimes they had and sometimes they hadn't, and that was the difficulty. Sometimes it might take us a while to find the door, and then the driver would some drivers would take off kind of with you trailing it, and other drivers would wait. They'd give you the extra minute, but it was a difficult task. So we were all very impressed when the restrictions were lifted in September 2021 and the doors were reopened, and it was a game changer for us once again for the first door to be opened at the front of the Lewis. But I suppose going forward, when new trams are coming in, or if the system is being if the trams are being retrofitted, it would be brilliant if the driver had the option of opening the first and maybe the second door. Because to open it automatically, and it would be for vulnerable customers who would have difficulty finding the second door. So maybe that could be part of a future order or retrofit.
And Barry, would you recommend for users who are blind or cane users to stand up by the driver's cab anyway, just for visibility, for the driver to see you?
Yeah. I had an experience a few years ago in Houston whereby I was at the back of the platform and I had just made the tram in time. I could feel by the slope where I was. Just got to the door, put the cane in. The door closed on top of my cane, and the Lewis took off with my cane. So I was a bit stuck. I was a bit high and dry. And I suppose what I learned from that night was that, one, it was a dark night. Two, that although a Lewis door has closed on me in the past, maybe once or twice over the years, and indeed they've always sprung back on me, in this case, perhaps it's just the size of the cane is too small. Maybe it's only, 1.5, 2 centimetres wide. So, always go down to the front of the tram where you've got your driver visibility. The driver can see you boarding, can afford you extra time, before taking off. And I suppose if I was getting on the back of the tram again, I would put my elbow in first, because at least if the door closed on top of me, it would spring back. It would pick it up, whereas it appears that the cane is just the thickness of it is too slim. It's calibrated maybe to pick up something larger, like your hand or your wrist or your body width or whatever it is. Okay. So for many reasons, it is better to board at the front of the Lewis.
And on board the tram itself, for people who don't know, maybe who aren't used to travelling on Lewis, people from other parts of the country, but maybe would like to try travelling independently on Lewis, what onboard features are there that are useful for you?
So I suppose the most important one is the intercom. So on red line trams, there's always an intercom on, red and green line trams, there's always an intercom on the right hand side of the door. And what that's very handy for is that if the audio announcements, for whatever reason, in the unlikely event, weren't working on the tram, you could press the button, you could speak to the driver, and the driver would come back to you when it's safe to do so and take your query. And that query could be, we've no audio announcements on this tram, could you advise me when we get to Fatima, please? Or, I'm a blind passenger, could you give me an extra few seconds, some extra time to get off when I'm alighting at the Jervis stop? So that's very, very handy. Now on the green line, on the red line older trams, the help points are always on the right side of the door, but on the red line trams, if they're not on one side, you have to go to the opposite side, whereas the green line newer trams, the intercom is on the right side of the door. Yeah, it's on every door on both sides.
Okay.
So that's a very good system for information and for help and just additional time. So it's a nice little system.
And on board the tram, you have there's obviously a visual display which shows people where the next stop is and what the tram destination is. But obviously, if you're blind or you have a serious vision impairment, you can't rely on those. So you're totally reliant on the audio announcements. Tell me a little bit about that and how important they are for.
Yeah, so it's So I suppose in the Lewis, audio announcements are essential. You know, they've been with the system since 2003, since the system started, and for us it was a game changer for our to travel independently. Now, obviously, there's red lines and green lines, and they both have different junctions. So, for example, the red line towards the city centre can travel to the Point, or it can travel to Connolly, and going out to the suburbs westbound, it can go to Tala or Saggart. Now, similarly with the green line, you know, when the green line was extended, it would go to Bridesglen or Sandyford, or travelling northbound, it would travel to Parnell or out to Broombridge. And one of the problems we have over the years is that while there are next stop announcements, we don't know the tram destination announcements. So, for example, we could board at Stephen's Green, and we're hoping to go up to Dominic Street to go to the ILEC Centre. And when we get on the tram, we're asking people, what's the destination?
Yeah.
And currently there's only, there was, about a year ago, when the Green Line's Cross City went into place, there was only one tram destination announcement between the GPO O'Connell Street stop and the Upper O'Connell Street stop. And for us, the problem is that if we were on a tram and it said the next stop is Parnell, if we alighted at the O'Connell Street Upper stop, the next tram coming in could also say the next stop is Parnell. And that means we'd end up going around in circles. And because it's such a long distance to walk from Marlborough Street back to GPO again, we literally could have been going around in circles all day long. Yeah. And something similar would happen on the Red Line, and I'd regularly go out to Tala to the White Cane Theatre. And similar kind of problem, you board the tram, you're not sure is it Tala or is it Saggart as the destination. You'd ask a fellow passenger, is this for Tala? Now some people would say, yeah, it is Tala, or other people would say, sorry, I'm only travelling a few stops. I don't know. And, you know, the first you're aware that you're on the wrong tram is when it says the next stop is Fetter Cairn. Now, while there is an onboard tram destination stop that plays between the Bellegarde and Kingswood stop, the problem is because there are windows open on the tram and the tram could be travelling at speed, you mightn't hear that announcement. So one of the great things in the last couple of years, particularly the Green Line last year, is that there are additional tram destination announcements now between Stephen's Green and Dawson and Westmoreland Street, and that allows us, or affords us, additional opportunities to alight the tram and change onto the correct tram. Yeah. And the great news we're hearing is that the rollout of additional tram destination announcements on the Red Line is imminent. And that's going to be a game changer for us, because, say for example, we had an additional announcement between Houston and James's, or between, for example, Red Cow and Kingswood, or Kingswood and Bellegarde. We would have multiple opportunities to alight from the tram and board the correct tram. So that's certainly going to be a welcome development over the next couple of months.
Good stuff, let's hope. And in terms of technology generally, there's some amazing technical innovations out there. So you've got your accessible apps, the text-to-voice technology, all of the passenger information displays, induction loops, audio announcements, all of that technology plays a great role in helping people to travel independently. But are there future technologies that you know of that maybe could be adopted here in Dublin?
Yes. So for example, there's an RFID. It's a radio frequency technology. and you can have a card in your pocket, and several traffic lights have this functionality that if you walk within a few metres of it, particularly at night time between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m, where the volume on the traffic light beacon and buzzer is lowered to 20%, when RFID is enabled on one of these Prisma Technic traffic lights and you have a suitable RFID smart card in your pocket, it'll actually increase the volume on the locator beacon or on the audio buzzer.
The sound or the announcement potentially.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. So you could be at a stop like Upper O'Connell Street and walk by it, and it's an on-demand system. Yeah. So it would be, this tram is for Parnell or this tram is for Broome Bridge. So for us, that would certainly be a game changer. Potentially, it could also be used maybe for help points. If that had RFID functionality and I could walk by it and it was scanning for the card in my pocket and went help point, I could walk towards it, effectively a beacon, and I could go over and contact control in Lewis.
And do you know, are there any systems that utilise this that you're aware of or that we could look at?
Yeah, it's something I have to check. I did come across a country before, I think it's Sweden, and Sweden have real-time polls on the platform, and when you go over and you have an RFID in your pocket, card, it'll scan your pocket, and again, there's no technology deficit. You don't have to have a phone, you don't have to rely on your phone having charge. What happens if you don't have a phone? Yeah. This technology could just be in your pocket. It's just like a regular card, and it scans it within a couple of metres. So that technology could certainly be a game changer.
Okay, so we're actually on board the tram now. We boarded at Cabra and we're heading southbound into the city centre on the Lewis Green Line. Barry, we were chatting there on the platform about just the RFID technology and how it could be used, and are there other technologies that you think would be of use?
I'd say probably the main one would be the RFID on the platforms, definitely, just to identify the help points, the tram destination announcements from the platform, and they're probably the main ones. As you said, the onboard one with the intercoms beside the doors to allow you to speak to the driver in the event that audio announcements weren't working. Yeah. Or, for example, just to afford you an extra few seconds to at your destination stop, because it is nice to have the extra 20 seconds, because anybody who's blind would probably generally have a balance issue as well, so they'd have to wait until the tram is stopped before standing up and finding the door, and sometimes that can take 20 or 30 seconds. So it is nice to have the extra time. Also, particularly when you're travelling peak times, when you might have people in your way, it might take a little bit longer to get off the tram. So it's a very handy safety net to be able to speak to the driver. Yeah. And the nice thing with intercoms is you don't need smartphones. It's not reliant on battery power. It's not relying on you, having a phone, on the day, or a mobile network.
Exactly, and you've mentioned before, just I suppose not everybody would be comfortable taking out an iPhone in public, or if they're standing on a platform or on a busy tram, it's better not to be reliant on the phone.
No, exactly, because although I use an iPhone myself, I've had several stolen over the years, and it's simple things like, although you have a Lewis VI app which you could load, the problem is, and it uses a thing called voice over screen reader. By the time you unlock your phone, open the app, choose the line like red and green and the actual direction of travel and pick your station, by the time you do that, it's about 3 minutes. Yeah. And in that 3 minutes, somebody can steal your phone. So, most blind and visually impaired passengers would unfortunately have experienced of phones being stolen, whether that would be at a bus stop or a Lewis stop over the years, and generally they will just ask another passenger or will use help points.
And in terms of antisocial behaviour, have you had much experience of that while travelling? So, you do an awful lot of independent travelling around the city, but would you have had experience of that?
Yeah, like only a small bit. There's usually kind of rowdy, maybe people. It's rare. It doesn't happen that often. But when you are on a tram and there is antisocial behaviour, I suppose my own experience would have been once on the way back from Tala, some guys thought it was a bit of crack to get my cane and throw it in the canal at Shure Road. Now, that ended up causing me big problems because I had to get off at Houston and I had to ring one of the Irish Rail guys to from Houston to come out and bring me over to a taxi. So one, it cost me a few quid. Then I had to buy a new cane as well.
Yeah.
So, but like, there's no way I could have gone home. Kind of going home without a cane is like a suicide run. So, you know, sometimes you just have to grab the bull by the horns and go home that way. So that was just my own experience. I've had another experience up in Dominic Street on the way to Broome Bridge of people, you know, jamming the doors on the Lewis.
Yeah.
And the Lewis was stuck there for about 20 minutes. And the guys were just, I don't know what they put in the door to jam it, but that was kind of an unnerving experience, because you're at a station where, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you get off the tram?
And you don't know if it's going to escalate.
If it's going to escalate. So I just hung tough in that situation, and security staff came out, removed the obstruction that the guys had jammed the doors with.
Yeah.
But, you know, the security guys are very, very helpful. I've met them at platforms, for example, say Jervis and other platforms. And if there's ever kind of trouble going on the platform, the Lewis security guys and indeed revenue protection are top notch. They will bring you away from the problem, you know, which is admirable. They will keep you safe. They'll have a little chat with you for the 10 minutes while the next tram is due. But, you know, it's great for peace of mind that they intervene. They go helping you rather than the other way around.
Excellent. And I know that on board the tram at the moment, there's a number that you can, a text number that you can call to report antisocial behaviour. But for people who are blind, they can't identify the tram vehicle number. So we're looking at the raised braille and raised number lettering, and that you explain how that might help.
So that would certainly be very beneficial. So the tram we're on now, I don't know what the number is. Is it 3005, 4001, 5003? I don't know what the tram number is. And while I could ask another passenger, even other passengers sometimes can't see where the tram number is. It's up in the ceiling behind the driver's cab or elsewhere on the vehicle, on the tram. So exactly. So we're at a disadvantage at the moment. If we wanted to discreetly report an antisocial behaviour episode on the tram, we don't know the tram number. And likewise, if the audio announcements, for example, weren't working on the tram, or the door wasn't working, like there might be a sticker on the door saying, you know, door faulty. But we're not aware of that until we press the door and go a stop or two too far. So we like to do our bit and try and report it. So back in the 90s on Dublin Bus, on bus stops, they used to have, and it's still on many of the Dublin bus stops, it's what's called tactile signage. So it has two things. It's got raised numbers, for example, 1673 for the bus stop. It's in contrasting black and yellow colours. It's raised letters, but there's also braille at the bottom. So it's a kind of a catch-all. It benefits people who are born blind, who can't read numbers or letters, and who can read braille only. But it also benefits people who, like myself, who've lost their sight kind of later in life, who can read braille but would be very slow at it. But I can trail the numbers and go 1671. So it's brilliant to hear that this is going to be located beside every door on the Lewis. And, you know, it'll allow us to go, that's trail 3005 in raised letters, or indeed you'd have the braille, the actual comparable braille as well to go with that. So we'd certainly feel enabled then to report, even if it's just a door out of action, audio announcements not working, could be an intercom button not working.
So
it just more inclusive.
Exactly, you can report things retrospectively as well. You can, like, if you have anything to report to the operator, you'll know what tram you were on, etc.
Because it's the same as a traffic light on the street. If I don't report the fault, it'll only be there broken tomorrow as well for everyone else. So you have to try and do your bit as well.
And by all accounts, you lead a very active life. I know you're broadcasting. You're also involved in the White Cane Theatre Group and Sightless Cinema, and I know you've a play coming up on Wednesday, etc. This week up in the Driocht. And you travel very independently on all modes of transport across the city. What has this experience taught you, and what advice would you give to other people who might be less...
So I have to say, the feeling of being able to leave your door at home, get on a bus, get on a train, travel independently. Well, one, it saves you a load of money in taxis. It saves you having to rely on friends and family bringing you to your destination. And, it's a fantastic feeling to be able to travel, safely on a system, know the next stop announcements, and to reach your destination. It's just a really good feel-good factor to be able to do that, to be able to do it independently. And, it's nice to be able to add more routes to the equation, and you're continuously learning new things. So, for example, you might have Busaras as a stop, but, Busaras has steps at one end of the stop. So, I'll become aware eventually that, it's the north end of the platform is the stop to, the part of the stop to exit at. I'm becoming aware of the help points. I'm becoming empowered, as time goes on. So it's a great feeling to be able to push the boat out, but to have so many safety systems, but not to be at a technology deficit as well.
Yeah.
Because people's phones can be broken, they can be stolen. It might cost €600 for a new phone, and you mightn't be able to get that money together for a while. And also, some people, it might take you 2 years to learn technology, and then other people, you mightn't ever get assistive technology. So it is nice to have simple ways of the platform, built-in systems,
technology, built-in
technology that's kind of universal design, that doesn't rely on you having 600 quid in your pocket or having a charged up phone with you on the day. It is great to have a button you can just press.
So we're coming into Marlborough stop now. I think we'll hop out here and we'll finish the chat on the platform. So we've come off the tram and we're on Marlborough Street, and Barry, you're just going to describe how you navigate from the vehicle onto the street, off the platform.
Got you. So currently I'm at the front of the platform. There's lozenge tactile, which are 3 bumps. So I'm going to follow the lozenge tactile down. I'm going to cross the road and move over towards Abbey Street. So there's 3 lozenge tactiles under my foot. Coming up shortly, I can feel a slope coming up shortly. And sometimes I go over the platform edge when I know there's Lewis behind me. Now
that's a big pole.
There's a big pole, so I'm not sure. That's an electricity pole, maybe. So I can hear pedestrian crossings ahead. So I should be feeling a corduroy tactile sometime soon. Or possibly I missed it. Now, here's another pole. Now, that's a pedestrian crossing pole, so I can hear the locator beacon off that. So there's a little arrow on it, it's a metal arrow, and you can feel a vibrating pulse through it. That gets lowered at night time between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. So, of course, I should press the button as well to change the light. So I'm waiting for that pulse to change. It goes fast when it's safe to do so. So we have a couple of vehicles. These pedestrian crossings usually change within 2 minutes. It's the cycle for them. It's still changing. Now, here we go. So it's safe to cross the road. So I'm going to cross to the opposite side of the road. I usually try and walk towards 1 o'clock in case I drift off course. And I'm on the other side of the road now. I can feel the blister tactile under my foot. So I'm going to walk into the building line here. I think it's a pub. Well, it was the last time I saw it anyway. Now, so it's getting cold, so I'm feeling, I can hear the pedestrian crossing to my 1 o'clock. So I'm going to walk towards it. I don't feel any, here it is. Yeah, I must have gone past it. So there's our other pedestrian crossing. We've got a pulse arrow on it. And we're facing the Abbey Street Lewis stop. So we're in Abbey Street now. It's the fast pulse is what my cue is, and the sound as well. So I'm walking towards Abbey Street Lewis. I think I'm across now. Now there's a railing here. So I'm waiting for the railing to end. I just guide that with my finger and cane. Now, so I'm now at the corduroy, and I know there's a pole here, and don't walk into it, Barry. So I'm going to go across the 2 Lewis tracks to the westbound platform to Calla and Saggart. So I'm crossing the 2 tracks. Now, we're nearly here. Now, so there's my corduroy. Now, what I do here is that there's a pole there, and don't walk into that. So that's the pole I've walked into a few times. And I'm just going to follow the platform edge and the lozenge tactile. And my plan now is to walk towards the front of the Lewis platform, because the driver always opens the door at the front of the platform. I can hear a tram coming in behind us, so I'm just going to the front of the platform, and there are people in front of me. So maybe I should stop. Yeah, no problems. So I think in this case I won't be going to the front of the platform.
Okay.
So I'll take any door that opens. Now, so I'm boarding this tram not knowing its destination, but I can press the button and ask the driver.
Okay.
So somebody's opened the door right in front of me. So I'm boarding the Lewis here. Now, so this is one of the help points that's an empty panel. Sarah, you're on the Lewis, yeah?
I'm here, yeah.
Yeah,
So on the Red Line fleet, it's generally just on one side. So you've got the double doors facing each other, and on the Red Line fleet, it's just to the right of one of the doors. But on the Green Line fleet,
it's on both sides. Yeah, so it's a great system. So hopefully maybe as part of a retrofit, because there is a kind of a panel space for it,
Yeah.
maybe that could be wired in. Maybe as part of a retrofit in the future.
Every door would have the help button then.
And while this intercom is only for emergencies, I'll wait until the driver is at the next stop because I don't want to annoy the driver.
Okay.
So I'm happy to press it now when the driver opens the door. Now. It's here. Oh yeah, hello driver. Can I ask you where the tram destination? Is this Tala or Sagart? Tala, great news. Thanks very much. Thank you. So there you go. That worked very well.
Okay, so I don't know. You're going to continue on. You're going to rehearsals for the play.
Yeah.
So I suppose it just remains to say a big thank you to you, Barry, for this morning and for just talking us through how you navigate the tram.
That's perfect. There's no problems at all.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about communication. Communication is key, and you know, and it's great for tourists as well. Nice to be able to press a button.
To be able to know where you're going.
Yeah, and you aren't dependent on having an app and being from Germany and coming over going, I can't get the Lewis app in my German iStore, or
it should be intuitive.
Yeah.
Well, Barry, thank you very much for
Thanks
today.
very much.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, and thank you for chatting to us.
Oh no, that's no problems at all.
I'm joined by Aoife O'Connell from Transdev. Aoife, welcome to All Aboard TII's Accessibility Podcast. So, for listeners who might not be aware, Transdev is the company responsible for the operation of Luas Light Rail in Dublin. Basically, it manages the tram services, the drivers, the customer agents, and of course, it's responsible for keeping the vehicles lovely and clean and in good working order and making sure that they run on time. Aoife, maybe if you could tell us about your particular role in Transdev.
So, hi Sarah, thanks for having me today. So I'm Aoife O'Connell. I'm the customer service manager for Luas. I deal with my team, deal with all the customer complaints and queries. We can be contacted through our social media platforms, which is Twitter and Facebook. We can also be contacted through email and web form and through our phone line as well. So we deal from beginning to end with all customer queries and complaints.
Very good. And so tell us about what kind of feedback you typically receive. It's not all complaints. Sometimes it's positive feedback. And
absolutely. Yeah, no, we would
questions.
we would get comments and queries, suggestions on a daily basis. How you would get from A to B on the Luas line, how you would get a connection from a certain Luas stop to Irish Rail or to Dublin Bus, queries on tickets. It's not all complaints. We generally get a lot of inquiries and comments and feedback.
Excellent. And actually, that's what I would love to talk to you about, because we spoke earlier to Roger Flood about the Travel Assist programme, which is a kind of a multimodal assistance programme. But Transdev also run the Luas Travel Assistance Scheme, which is particular to Luas Light Rail. And it's an excellent service provided to people who need a little help in getting to know the system. So for people who might not be aware of the service, tell us about how it works.
Yes, so anybody looking to travel by Luas and who's looking for some assistance to travel from, say, A to B, they can contact Luas customer service by emailing us at info@luas.ie, or they can contact us on any of our social media platforms or by giving us a ring on the phone. And our customer service department will arrange for staff to meet that person at their designated stop at the time and date requested, and they will bring them from A to B on their journey. We'll also facilitate then if somebody is new to the Luas line, they don't necessarily want to make a journey, they just want to familiarise themselves with a particular route, or to familiarise themselves with the tram, where the emergency help button may be, how they which accessible doors they need to use, and so on. So we do provide that service as well.
That's excellent. So it's a one-to-one service for people, and a really good way of maybe people who might be a little bit nervous about using the system, who might not be familiar with the system. It's a way for them to get to know it and to learn the route, and then from there on, hopefully be able to travel independently on that route.
Absolutely.
And do you get much feedback from that, or do you find that people...
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we only ever had positive feedback about the service that we provide. The staff on the line, the customer agents, are very knowledgeable and are there to assist our passengers in any way possible.
And of course, one of the things that's come up over the years is that all of your customer-facing staff receive disability awareness training. So, how is this of practical use to people on the ground? How does it...
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose when staff start as part of their induction training, they all receive disability awareness training, and we have our in-house trainers who provide that training to all of our staff. They also get refresher training once a year, and as part of that training as well, they are given jam card training, and that's a standard for all staff, all public-facing staff on the line.
Very good, and the jam card is the just a minute, so it's basically a badge that people can carry to say, just bear with me, I need a little help potentially. Exactly. And of course, that's really good. It just means that the customer agents are wise, I suppose. They just keep in mind that people might need help, and they know how to recognise it and what to do in those instances. So along with the customer agents and the training that they have and the help that they provide, one of the things that's come up over the years is that drivers, I suppose, are aware that if they see somebody maybe potentially with a cane or whatever at a stop when the tram is approaching, they've been made aware that maybe that person might need a little extra help or might need a little extra time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that, where necessary, if people need to approach the driver, that they can do so if they're very stuck, if they're standing at the top of the platform at the driver cab or whatever, and drivers are
exactly, yeah. I mean, what generally would happen would be if a passenger did need any extra time, or extra assistance, they would stand, I suppose, close to the driver's cab, make the driver aware. Once the driver can see them, he'll be able to then give them that extra little bit of time that they need then to board a tram.
And Transdev do other kind of community engagement. You were telling me earlier about some of the projects you're involved in with schools, etc.
Yeah, so recently, I mean, during the summer, there was a family fun day out in Ballyogan. It included fun days in Bensie face painting, with Luas staff and engagement in the local area. We got great feedback through our social media platforms, actually, from families who had attended on the day, and it was a great day by all accounts. We also liaise with different schools on the I suppose on the red and the green line, and do some community engagement with the schools as well, and just I suppose teaching children how to be safe around the Luas line. In terms of,
crossing the tracks,
and getting on and off trams and things like that. So we do have, absolutely engagement throughout the year on different aspects.
Good. And you had recently, you were approached by a school with kids with disabilities, and you ran a program to help those kids get familiar with the service?
That's correct. So we had a teacher from a school, so she had a classroom with children with disabilities, and she approached us with a request. So it was, she was looking to bring her class out on the line and to have a member of staff be able to familiarise the children with the tram, where they get on the tram, looking at the passenger information displays on the platform, the SOS button, but also when they get on the tram then, best place to sit, and the priority seating areas, where the tram number is displayed, where they can press the button then if they need to get in touch with the driver and things. So they're really just tram familiarisation and platform familiarisation with this group of children.
And I suppose it's important just to remind people that some of the accessibility features. So you've got, for example, for wheelchair users and for buggies and for anybody with mobility issues, the tram has level boarding and ramps leading to the platform, so there's kind of an ease of movement there. And then once you're on board, there are induction loops for people with hearing problems. You have the visual display to notify people of the next stop, and of course there are audio announcements as well. So there's a whole series of accessibility features.
Exactly, yeah. And we pride ourselves in being able to, to transport people from A to B seamlessly, no matter what their situation is.
Well, Aoife, thanks a million for coming in to talk to us about the Travel Assistance Programme. You mentioned that all that information is up on the website.
It is,
www.lewis.ie. And if people want to contact you to maybe book the Travel Assistance Programme, they can go to info@lewis.ie or through any of the social media platforms.
Exactly. We can also be contacted by phone on 0818 300 604.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Aoife.
Thanks,
That's
Sarah.
great.
So that's it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed our conversations on disability and design and gained some insight into the role we can all play in ensuring public transport is truly for everyone. Thank you to our host Sarah O'Donnell, to Trevor Cudden on sound, to the production team Kathleen Jacoby, Rachel Cahill and Claire Scott, to Sinead Foley from TU Dublin who designed our fantastic graphics, and to everyone else who helped make this podcast. Please send us your comments and feedback to allaboard@tii.ie. And for more episodes from All Aboard, please go to Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.